everybody, Justin Bell here on Drive to Win. Once again, I am in the beautiful Sirius XM studios at the Wynn Las Vegas. Well, my guest this week is Formula One photographer and also IMSA sports car photographer, Jamey Price, a great friend of mine. And if you follow him on social media, you know exactly why I'm bringing him on the show. Also, the fact that he was in Monaco and he is the only one of my contacts that isn't blindly drunk from the parties that rolled into Monday morning rather, and through the day. So he is a great guy to have on the show. I'll tell you all about him in a minute. Can't wait to have him. Monaco Grand Prix. Wow, what a place. I was so excited following every single practice session and qualifying, and it's just the Principality of Monaco. It brings back all these wonderful memories of, well, they're not really my memories, but everybody's memories of the nostalgic days of Formula One, watching them drive down right past the water with the yachts and the boats and the beautiful people and Grace Kelly and To Catch a Thief and all that stuff. But the reality was, other than the show, the pomp and circumstances and all these beautiful people and all those beautiful things and celebrities, it was pretty much one of the worst Grand Prix of the year, or the worst Grand Prix of the year, in fact. And while last year's Monaco Grand Prix was dismally disappointing as well, the way they backed it up, they were running on tire strategy all the way to the end of the race, running 10 seconds off the pace, which is just, it's like watching a pitch come out and just go like that. It would just be so disappointing in Major League Baseball. But when you get to Formula One, I think it's inexcusable. There's got to be a better way around it. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But do you remember last week, I did say Charles Leclerc, I think, despite their mediocre to triflingly appalling last few races, I said I thought Charles Leclerc would go for pole and he'll just be good around there because he is the Monegasque man, born and bred just right there, cycles his bike back home every day. I thought he's going to do it because he's magical around there and the Ferrari's good in tight corners. And I was almost right. This betting thing by being in Vegas, I thought I really wish I put a bet on until Lando just put in that qualifying lap that was so outstanding. He pipped it into the next time bracket, and you could just see the energy shift in the whole place as he did that, because as a driver you feel so good when you've broken a new record, broken a new barrier. And the disappointment equally on Charles Leclerc's face was so palpable because he wanted pole in Monaco, and really it's probably the only one they had a chance of getting all year. But really, really, really interesting to see. Why did Lando do it? I mean, how did Lando do it? Just a couple of weekends ago, we were talking about his mental destruction, the crushing of his ego, the way he's being delicately or not so delicately decimated by Oscar Piastri. But now we had Lando Norris on his purest distilled form in maybe the hardest place to get a qualifying lap, where to get pole, where you have to take risks that elevate you to another place, transcend your driving skills to somewhere else. And a lot of it maybe is the fact that he's taken himself off social media. He's got himself out of all that bullshit. He's not feeling part of that circus. And also, full credit to the McLaren organization for knowing they have two different thoroughbreds in this race. Oscar, who already, even with less experience, is ready to head his way with a, determination to the Drivers' Championship. Lando, who needs a bit more management and a bit more finessing, and they've obviously wrapped him up in a nice way to create the best version of Lando Norris. And it really was great. I mean, just look at how he handled the race. And I think, let me just rewind a bit. When Jamey is coming on the show, we're not really going to be talking as much about the race. I want to talk about his experiences through the race, because obviously as a photographer, he doesn't get the chance to watch and analyze it the same way that we do, or some of our other guests. But I thought we should use Lando as just my story arc for the race. He came off the line. Charles was right there alongside him. Even his front axle was a bit ahead. Lando locks up going to turn one, and I'm like, if this happens, no, if he does blow it, he is going to literally put himself back a whole year. There will be no run to the Drivers' Championship. He will be just mentally devastated. But no, he obviously didn't get full lockup, even though it looked terrible, and didn't affect the tyres moving forward. And from that point, really, he just held the race together, even though with the mandatory 2 pit stops, he was artificially behind Max Verstappen on the road. All the different strategies that could unfold obviously were in play during that race. And I thought the way Lando handled it, the way he was on the radio right up to the very end was very impressive. And obviously Max had to take his final pit stop. It's almost, I'm going to say, if you did watch the race, I'm not going to say you should watch the race, but it's probably not worth watching the race, but you'll understand what I'm saying a lot better if you did. But near the end, Max had to take his second pit stop. He was feeling, obviously, he was rolling the dice from his position that he knew the only way he could get a win or stay at the front would be in the event of a red flag, and it didn't play out. But what would have happened, guys, if the others taken 2 stops and then he'd only done 1 and there's a red flag at the end? Could have been a lot of disputes, I guess, in the official control room. Anyway, Max came in, but just in time for Lando, because Charles Leclerc was up his chuff. I mean, literally, you could see Charles's, spit coming out of his mouth and red eyes as he's trying to do everything he can to intimidate Lando into a mistake, and it didn't happen. Lando held his course, drove excellently, and when Max came in, he sodded off into the distance as if to go, I could have done this at any point, Charles. You had no real chance of taking me down. But the pressure he was under was immense, and then on that last lap, he didn't need to do it, but he went and got fastest lap. Remember, there's not an extra point for fastest lap, but he still went and did it. And I'm sounding excited about that because there was nothing much else to be excited about. So it was a little too late, but to sort of make the race an epic, but everything went through and for Lando. So, and all those scenes at the end, just magnificent. Can't wait to talk to Jamey about there because he has some great pictures of Lando at the end there. So that was that. I just want to quickly mention Isaac Hajar because he's under the radio, French Algerian. I didn't know what to make of him when he came in. I really didn't know much about him, but he has impressed so much me. He obviously had that awful, false start by crashing literally at the first practice of the first race of the year. But that takes immense inner strength to come back, almost the laughing stock of the paddock. That's not how you want to start your Formula One career path. And he has such strength and obviously is super quick, has found stability in Formula One that he didn't really find in Formula 2. And he's only unfortunate thing I think about his year is that he has chosen a year to make his rookie debut in Formula One the same year as Kimi Antonelli, with all the fanfare that is bringing. But if you think about it, he's part of a team that's executing well. The Racing Bulls are doing exactly what they need to do. He's been in half of the Q3s this year, which is on its own an amazing feat. And his consistency is incredible. I mean, 5 out of 8 races, he's been the top Red Bull family driver outside of Max. Think about that. I mean, he's really doing very well and even outpacing his teammate Liam Lawson. And he doesn't seem to be intimidated by the big stage. So I'm very, for me, he's like my favorite rookie of the year. And I'm looking forward to seeing how his career will unfold. On the other end of that scale, where is Yuki? You'd be quite correct in asking that. When it was Sergio Perez in the seat and when it was Liam Lawson, the media attention was of titanic proportions, the scrutiny on every single thing, the comparisons being drawn between Max Verstappen and at the front and his teammate loitering in the parking lot somewhere down the back of the field. It really showcased not just the differences between Max and anyone else, but Max and his teammate, which just was a career death knell for most people. But with Yuki, it seems to be silent. I think they're letting him get on with it. It was a pretty dismal race for him. And he's only had 3 points this season since he joined the big team. So my forecast is that you're going to start to see some pressure being exerted on him. But I really think that maybe Christian Horner is just going, we've got Yuki in a window. He's not effing up the race for us. We wish he were doing better, but we're just focusing on how we can get Max the Drivers' Championship. That's what I think anyway. And then maybe it would be Isaac Hajar in the car next year. That would be great. Well, two-stop has to stop. That's kind of what I think. I don't blame the FIA for trying it in the Principality because something had to happen after last year's red flag procession. But at Monaco, not much changes significantly. It's just one of those places, the confines of the track. It was built thousands of years, ago, the town. So it's very hard to increase the track length and width. And the cars are so bloody big. They're like 3 times bigger than they were when they designed the track. So really does make it very tough. Interesting what the two-stop did. I was hoping for more. And one thing that you should think about is that, yes, the FIA are super smart and they come up with these rules. But when it comes to it, the teams are smarter. And they're like criminals in prison. They've got time on their hands and resources, and they'll come up with a way to escape. And that's exactly what they do with Formula One, with the regulations. They come up with a way to circumnavigate them. Did the FIA think that some cars would come in on the first lap? I don't know, maybe not. But certainly waiting till the end for Max was also the other end of the strategy. It was really weird. One pack at the front, pushing hard, really, really hard. And at the back, just doing whatever. Did it make for opportunity? It did. But it made for such sort of shitty calls for people to come in, and it kind of felt very sportsmanlike to do so. I mean, just look when James Vowles, because he was, and we heard from last week when he was a guest on the show, he's so close to Toto Wolff. He even texted him and said, "I'm so sorry for what we're doing to you, but there's nothing else for it." And you know that Toto had the same game plan on his sheet as well, where the roles reversed. So he just said, I know, nothing much left to do. It allowed Williams, of course, to come through, and they did have another top 10 with both cars, which is amazing. And but the teammates weren't very happy. It was a pretty awful race. The conclusion for me is Monaco is so outdated for a modern Formula One car, but it is part of the fabric of Formula One. Anything gained in that race in terms of strategy and pace, like in car setup like Ferrari had, it's totally out of the window. It counts for nothing. It's literally will mean nothing going into this next weekend's race. So the anomaly of being fast, Charles, I think will be over. One thing that came up this morning on social media, which you'll have all heard by now, is Alex Wirtz, who's the head of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, an amazing driver. I loved watching him in Formula One and sports car. He does a lot of track design now, which I didn't know, but he's presented 3 major track changes, extending braking zones, widening the track maybe in select places, increasing the braking distance to that Nivelle chicane as they come out of the tunnel, and then doing an extra bit of land reclaiming into the harbour. And of course, huge investment from the Monaco side to pull that off. But I think he's onto something. You need one great braking zone where you have to defend instead of just, it's too easy. As DC, David Coulthard, said on the broadcast, he remembers being behind someone for 50 laps there. Nothing you can do. So, in conclusion, Monaco is a wonderful place to live for the drivers. It's an incredible place for the high rollers to go and watch a Formula One race. As a TV spectacle, it's all about qualifying. It should almost just be a qualifying show, and the race is pretty much a foregone conclusion, but I'm glad it's there, and I'm glad to say I've seen it in person. So still put it on your bucket list, all right? Well, it's that time of year again, guys, to get your plans in order to attend the 2025 Concours right here at the Wynn Las Vegas. This year's event is a weekend-long celebration that promises, really does, to be the social event of the fall season, where the world's most prestigious cars and top automakers will grace the greens of the Wynn Golf Club for the 2025 Concours at Wynn Las Vegas. It's the 4th annual gathering featuring an expanded showcase of more than 250 unique cars within 4 judged and non-judged categories for vehicle entry and display. Now, you want to know when it is? It's October 31st through November 2nd. And for more information regarding tickets and room packages, just visit lasvegasconcours.com. So now let's bring in Jamey. Jamey Price. He started out life as a jockey in England and Ireland and racing here in the States. I was blown away when I found that out over lunch one time at Marion's at Daytona. And Jamey was passionate about horse racing. He then became a photographer in that, and then early 2000s found his way into motorsports. Thank goodness for us, because I don't follow horse racing. And he hasn't looked back. He's a regular at the Formula One scene. He's definitely a stalwart of the IMSA paddock, and his images really bring everything to life. So, Jamey, so good to have you on the show. I'm glad you made it, mate.
Great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know normally I associate my encounters with you as a barometer really on how the race is going and where we are in the world, because I have seen you with like your eyes poking out of a rain jacket with all the wet gear all over your cameras and just going in the press room for a second at Daytona before you head back out into the monsoon. And I've seen you in the baking heat somewhere else and your fair skin turning bright red.
We do our suits and ties at Monterey Car Week too.
And we do suits and ties. We actually we morph to the situation, but
we go.
Well, I really wanted to get you on the show because obviously coming off the back of Monaco, so much to discuss, but I also thought how important it was to have someone that was there, because
I was there.
How do you explain Monaco if you've never been or you're not there? So I'm going to kick it off and say, first of all, how many Monacos have you done now?
That was my 9th Monaco.
Wow. I didn't know, because you sort of slid into the Formula One thing. It was 1 minute I was like, oh, I just associate with IMSA and IndyCar. And next thing is I see you up on Instagram posting about Formula One. And I was like, that must have been a one-off. But now you're one of the guys.
Yeah, I've done quite a few Grand Prix now. I've been covering, I don't cover the full season, but I cover off and on where I'm needed to be just for client work or busy races. I've done since 2012. So
okay.
Quite a few of them. And I've been very lucky to just meet some incredible people along the way and had some amazing opportunities to work with some amazing brands and teams and, just be part of the Formula One circus in addition to the other stuff that I do.
Yeah, no, it is. And it is a bit of a circus, isn't it? I mean, all racing is. It's a traveling circus. We all have our acrobats, our jugglers, our fire breathers. Each series has its own...
And the clowns.
And the clowns. And each series has its own version of it. Would you agree with me when I say it doesn't matter what genre of racing, you can identify the same characters as if it was a sitcom?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't go, there's a Zach Brown. Who does he remind you over here? Kind of wild.
Yeah, you could turn it into a pretty good sitcom, which they basically have done for Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about the shirt you're wearing then. There's me going before you went on. What shirt have you got on? But you and Sonny Hayes, are you tight?
Not so tight, but he drove for Chip Hart Racing, which AKA Wright Motorsport at the Rolex 24. So a couple of years ago, they used the Wright Motorsport car, which is one of my clients for IMSA WeatherTech, all the races in IMSA WeatherTech. So they had the Wright Motorsport car liveried as Chip Hart Racing, and all the drivers were wearing Sonny Hayes fire suits and helmets. And they had a movie camera in the car. So I was able to be around a fair amount of the filming. And I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm not endorsed by the movie, but I'm pretty excited to see what they come up with and how it goes. And yeah, it's a really comfortable t-shirt too. It's very soft cotton.
Well, anyone listening, you just got to go to YouTube just to see how comfortable Jamey looks. But I am actually excited to watch it. A lot of these movies, as we know, are not meant for the people in that particular industry. I was telling a story just to a group of people last week, and are you looking forward to it? How good was it? And I said, well, how good will it be? I said, well, I remember back in the late 80s, Dad had a Porsche driving school. These two Navy pilots were on and came to it. And during the dinner we were having, they said, did you like Days of Thunder? And we're all like, oh my God, what a load of rubbish. You don't downshift on the banking at Talladega because your crew chief says go around the outside. You're already flat out. And they laughed and they went, did you enjoy Top Gun? And I said, best movie I've ever seen in my life. We all said it. And they started laughing and they said, take it from us. If you put full flaps on at Mach 2, there is nothing left to discuss. You will disintegrate. And I'm like, no way. So now I realize that actually that is, that's definitely the thing. It is about bringing more people into the sport. And
Yeah, it's not for the diehards. It's for people that aren't diehards. And I've heard it from pilots themselves that, like, there's something to be enjoyed about the Top Gun movies, and it's not a documentary, so just relax and enjoy it as a Hollywood movie. Go get some popcorn and enjoy it.
exactly, which kind of leads us back to Monaco, because all the story arcs going into it, the set, the scene set of this, the principality, the beauty, the glamour, and it was just really a race that will not go down in the history books, really, because of the two-stop and all that. And we can jump into that in a minute. But talk about being in Monaco. Talk about the spectacle, the energy. Is it as good? For anyone listening, is it as special to be there as you'd think?
To be honest with you, it really is. It's one of the few races that I've been to around the world where the event itself as a week feels very, very special, and it feels like a big party, and it feels fun, and there's just a lot going on. Like, there's so many people walking around in the afternoons and at night once they close the track, because they close the track for racing, and then they open it for just people to wander around and drive their cars back to their houses in Beausoleil or Italy or wherever they're going. So you can drive most of the track, you can walk all of it, and they have a big dance party essentially from the swimming pool chicane all the way to Rascasse. And I really love Monaco as an event. It does not produce great racing, but from a photography point of view, there's almost nowhere better in the world for pictures of race cars. And then, having just the atmosphere with the yachts and the parties and the people watching and seeing these drivers push these cars, especially in qualifying, seeing them push these cars to the limit is really, really, really special.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig a bit deeper into that in a minute. I got some of your amazing images you just sent us to choose from. But what is the access like? Because I got asked at the weekend again, I'd like to go to Monaco next year. What's it like to get around? If you are a spectator, you have to go corporately, right? Or get on a yacht, what's it like getting around?
You're wanting to be, if you're a spectator, you're wanting to have a grandstand seat. To be on a yacht would be, I've been on the yachts. I've never watched practice from one of the yachts, but to be on a yacht is a cool thing anyway for most of us that don't get to live the life of the rich and famous. And, being on a $25 million, 60-meter yacht in Monaco Harbor is kind of cool, just because that's not something that everybody gets to do on a weekend. But, when you're actually watching practice, I can imagine it's pretty challenging because they just go from, right across you, and that's kind of all you see. But if you were in one of the grandstands, they're near the swimming pool or somewhere like that, it's pretty cool. Like, it's hard to beat that, to be honest with you.
Sure.
It's a lot of walking. Monaco in general is just a lot of walking.
Do you have a counter on how many steps you do generally?
It's definitely north of 25,000 a day, and
Jeez.
It's between like 8 and 10 miles a day, just because there's no real easy way to get from the media center to Portier or to the Nouvelle Chicane or to the Casino Square. Like, you walk there, and at least the view is nice. Like, you're literally walking along the harbor, and my biggest fear isn't getting hit by a car, it's falling into the harbor with all my camera gear, because you're kind of like tiptoeing around the marshals while they're making lunch or having cheese and a little sausage plate that they've made between sessions, and they're kind of all just like spread out in their lawn chairs just sitting around, and you kind of have to like tiptoe around them, and literally it's a sheer drop off of 15 feet into the harbor.
So it's kind of a stuff we don't get to see. It still hasn't really changed over the years in Monaco. You imagine the really grandfather of that marshal making his baguette is probably the same guy that was there watching Stirling Moss.
Truly, and it's one of the things that I love about the event, because some of the newer races, things have changed a lot with the access or how how the racetrack is and looks, or the reprofiling of some of the corners. But in Monaco, you can literally take pictures that were taken in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and you can go do those exact same pictures now today. Yeah. And it's really, really cool, and it's special. And when you're standing there, you feel like you're, I don't want to say documenting history because it feels kind of cheesy to say that, but sort of, kind of.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, because you could go back and recreate a shot if you see it, and someone will do it to you. So I love that. Well, let's head to the pit lane for the start, the pre-race. It's one of the only races I actually watched the whole pre-show for as well, is because I enjoy seeing who's down there and all that. It's tight when no one's out there on the pit lane. Talk about what was the energy this year, especially at the front. Lando's extraordinary pole position. Describe the energy at the front of the grid. How were the drivers? What was the look in their faces that you see through your lens?
They kind of always have the same emotions, to be honest. I think they all have their pre-race rituals, but with Monaco, it's kind of fun. It's basically like a DJ set going on, before the race starts. I actually didn't have grid access this weekend because I think that they're trying to cut down on how many people are out there. So I just wasn't given grid access, which is fine. It actually worked out really well for this race because I just ended up shooting the grid from the other side of the fence.
I saw that. So the photograph we're going to put up now is of Fred Vasseur with Charles before the start. And did you feel in that moment you can't hear what they're saying, but you're getting a glimpse into an intimate moment between the principal and the challenger for this race at Monaco?
Yeah, you kind of actually hear bits and pieces of their conversation. Like I was sitting there listening to Charles talking to his race engineer, and they're just kind of talking about, pre-race procedures and maybe like the plan for the first little bit, just reminding Charles, because they've already done all their engineering meetings. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of like, you are absorbing it. Like people always think that photographers, I don't know why they think this, but that we're not privy to information or whatever, just because we're photographers. We're like the lowest of the low in terms of people that matter at a race. But I still have ears, I still have eyes, and I know how to use them. And I'm using all of my senses to kind of be like exist in this world and figure out where I need to go and what I need to do and how I need to cover it. And so I'm sitting there like basically inches away from Charles. Like I took that picture on a 20 millimeter lens. So if you know photography, like it's a wide angle lens.
Yeah.
So, Charles is literally like a foot away from me through the fence, getting ready, and you can feel the energy building. You can feel like they've still got the DJ, it's a really cool atmosphere and it's a really cool vibe. And you're just kind of watching and listening. And I actually saw Charles like look up, and he always has this pre-race ritual where he sprays himself in the face with a little spray bottle of water, I guess, to freshen up. So he sprayed himself and me in the face because I'm that close to him. And then Fred walks over and gives him a little hug and a, go get him, Tiger kind of thing. And it's just it's a nice moment just to be that close for.
Yeah.
I really enjoy like the people side of racing, not just here's a race car on a racetrack. Like it's something more than that, because it's about the people in racing.
Yeah. So obviously, as you say, you got ears, you hear the scuttlebutt, and the media room, I know, is where, it's like where all the old women hang out to gossip, right? And no disrespect to old women, but I know my grandma, good gossip. And they are this, never have you seen such a jaded group of humans as the media room. But and some of them have been doing it since leather helmets, right? There's some very seasoned photographers in there that have been around more than 600 or 700 Grand Prix, which is a long time. Wild. So the big thing going into this weekend was this mandatory two stop. That obviously meant it created more opportunity for you guys as photographers. But what was the general buzz about it going into it? Did you overhear many little side conversations, even amongst yourselves, on how's this going to pan out?
I think we were all kind of curious to see how it would go, because Monaco, if you've watched one, you've kind of seen them all, where it's really challenging conditions. the best Monacos have been when you get a mix of rain and sun, where you have a lot of variables to it. And I think that's what they kind of tried to do by having a multiple pit stop type, race. And it's hard to follow a little bit when you're trackside. Like, I'm kind of looking at the TV screens to figure out where cars are, but they were all kind of bunched up together in packs that would go by. So just because of that, I knew it wasn't an amazing race, that they weren't super strung out, or you wouldn't get like two battling each other and then you'd get like one or two or three go by. It was like 8 cars would go by in a big train, and then there would be like a big space of nothing going by.
Yeah.
And then it'd be another train of like 8 going by. Yeah. And then it was kind of challenging to see how it would go. But none of us really have access to the pit lane for the race.
Okay.
So there won't be very many pit stop pictures generally for this particular event, just because we don't have access to it.
You just made me think of something. Perhaps if they were going to artificially, the rules are the rules. You do a 2, and I said at the beginning of the show, I mean, at least they tried something after last year's procession. But maybe they just have to mandate a window, a lap window when you could do those stops. You know what I mean? Maybe within a 5-lap window or 10-lap window, you have to do it. Because as you say, they're trying to increase simulate the jeopardy of rain, but rain, you don't know when it's coming. But this, they were able to turn the most brilliant minds in world sport onto working out that they needed to, if they're at the back, come in on the first lap. I mean, or if you're Max Verstappen, hold on until the last lap, hoping for a yellow. So maybe they'd have to do that. But
I'm not a track expert, but I know Alex Wirtz, who does design tracks like professionally. He's thrown out some pretty interesting ideas on how they could change it, because I do think, I know there's a lot of people that don't like Monaco as a race or as an event, and I personally do enjoy it, and I do enjoy going there, and I think it would be a shame to lose it off the calendar. But I think that there's some things that could be done to maybe help the race just be more interesting. But I still think it was a fairly interesting race in terms of strategy versus last year. And last year was simply because of F1's red flag rules, which I'm not a big fan of. But,
Well, when you say there's things they can do, you'd believe that this is what they think about 24/7. So you'd hope they would come up with something quite alternative. Outside changing the track, outside mandating pit stop windows, what else do you think they could do?
I don't know. Make the cars smaller, which they're making them smaller for next year, but we'll see.
Not that small. I, like everybody, have been fascinated watching the Lewis Hamilton journey at Ferrari, and you got a beautiful shot. We're showing it now. Those of you that follow us on SXM, go head over to YouTube if you want to see Jamey's amazing images. This is obviously Lewis in the paddock before he put his race suit on. It's funny how he wears Ferrari merch, but he never really wore Mercedes merch, did he? He wears Ferrari. How do you feel he is? What's his energy? Because you've followed him now, as you say, for quite a few years. What do you get from him?
I feel a little bit of frustration, to be honest. I can kind of sense it. I think he's frustrated with where his performance is with the car. With Lewis, I have the highest respect for him as a racing driver. He does make it a little bit challenging with the pictures of himself just coming in the morning. Sometimes, like, he will literally duck and dodge his own photography team from Ferrari. And just come in, like, they will anticipate him coming in one entrance, and then he'll end up coming in another entrance just because he wants to keep everybody on their toes. So he's kind of always running around the paddock on a scooter at, 1,000,000 miles an hour. He's got 2 security guards, like his own personal bodyguards, chasing him around. And so it's pretty challenging to get nice pictures of him, which is kind of just part of what we have to do as photographers covering the event. We have to get pictures of the drivers, in the press conferences and, just around. It's just important to have nice candids of these guys. And it's not easy, I'll say that. But that was him riding his scooter in one morning. And he did actually wear Mercedes gear a fair amount. His deal was normally that he would walk in the morning wearing his own fashion brands that he was, working with. And then he would change into Mercedes gear. That's changed a little bit this year with Ferrari, where he's not really doing so much of his own fashion brands. He did actually do it in Monaco. I just didn't happen to get any pictures of him wearing it. But then he just changes into his Ferrari gear and you never really see him again.
I know, it's amazing in such a small environment and you don't get to see him. Well, so now the race gets, the race is underway. You've made your way around the track. You get down to the Nouvelle chicane and you've showed us a great shot of you behind the group of gaggle of photographers looking at the cars as they make their way through the left into the right. You're really close there by today's standards, aren't you?
It's actually not as dangerous as it looks. Like, they're quite far away from you and they're moving in the opposite direction. So, if you're going to have a car crash, like, they're never going to end up in your lap there. They're going to end up, on the other side of the track. There's in that picture, there's a truck that's behind me. There's a grandstand that's behind me. There's a catch fence and a concrete wall that's over my right shoulder. As places to stand, it's about the safest place in Monaco, actually, amazingly. But then there's other places where you're standing there and you're like, holy, it is honestly mind-blowing how close the cars are. And, they're like right up against the barrier where you're standing. Yeah. And it is really, really, really exhilarating is the right words. I enjoy it a lot. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. I was a former athlete in a previous life. And so I still get a big kick out of that adrenaline rush. And it's great for pictures. But the Nouvelle chicane, I'd never felt like, gosh, I'm putting
You're not at risk.
No, definitely not. And like the marshals are literally standing essentially out on the racetrack just because, to their right, there's a big Armco barrier. And Isaac Hajar, proved pretty intensively right there that if you smack the wall hard enough, exactly what I predicted would happen. And you just end up across the track and, kind of toward the yachts more than anything. But
your shot, the next shot I want to show is of the cars going through the tunnel, one of the cars going through the tunnel. Yeah. Now I know you did a great thing on Instagram last week when what I see and what I shoot. That was really good, showing the power of your long lenses. The tunnel must have been maybe more impressive when they were running V10s, but what is it like to be in the tunnel when they're on it? Because I know there's a huge difference between a car when it's on it and when it's cruising around 10 seconds off the pace.
That's really actually a good point, because in Monaco, it feels so like when they're just cruising around or trying to put a sector together, or they're trying to get space between themselves and another car, they are really like slow, and then they'll go offline, but then you have a car come through at speed pushing, and the speed differential is so cool. It's so I honestly don't even have words for it, because the difference between a push lap and a not push lap is really mind-blowing. So in the tunnel, I actually never got to photograph the V10s or the V8s, but I've been covering Monaco basically since 2014. Yeah. And it's been V6 turbos since then, and it's still pretty loud in there. It's not really a nice sound. It's just really, really loud. But when they're really pushing through the tunnel, like they're sparking at a couple different points along the way. So as they're bouncing along through the tunnel, they'll have a big shower of sparks come from behind the car, and those literal flaming pieces of titanium are bouncing along behind them, and they kind of like hit you in the face or in the arms or in the back of the head if you're facing the other direction. It's pretty cool to experience it. And you smell, like there's a smell too, and it's hard to describe it. It's almost like your toaster oven is burning, like it's like an electrical fire is what it kind of smells like. But it's really just the engine, like at max push, all the power, all the turbo, all the energy being used. And it's a really, like, you're truly using all your senses at this when you're doing this job.
That was just such a good description. I could feel it, actually, Jamey. And I know racing photography has really evolved. You and a couple of your peers have really changed it from the stereotypical, here's your car with your logos and everything. you're allowed much more artistic creativity, I think, and we expect it. I think. Do you think Instagram's contributed to that? We want to see cool, sexy shots.
Yeah, social media has definitely pushed that, whereas it's not so much just corporate sponsorship type pictures that are needed for the racing photography, which is kind of what it was. I mean, it's not to say that there wasn't incredibly talented photographers, going all the way back to the very beginning of organized motorsport, which there have been, like some of the photographers that are honestly still running around working alongside us today were the people that really pushed those slow shutter speed shots and even did stuff in Monaco that I can't even dream of doing. And they did it on film, single shot, no autofocus, no 20 frames a second.
Yeah.
Like, it is literally just one film photo, and they're choosing the shutter speed at like a 1/10 of a second. And there's some iconic photos, but now you do have the expectation of having some creativity in terms of what we're delivering. And one of my clients from this weekend, their literal shot list for me was to go do creative things that tell the passion and the side of the sport that's not just race car on racetrack. Here's the sponsors.
That's lovely for you. Are you allowed to tell us who you work for?
I can't tell you that one, but it was a sponsor on one of the cars, and they just really wanted nice pictures, and it was really a nice, fun brief to be able to just be turned loose and just say, I want to go here for this session because I know I can get a nice shot of this sponsor of the car from this particular viewpoint. And it's a lot of fun.
Are you
always like that?
I'm sure. How could you not? And we love seeing it. So are you a Lando Norris fan? How are you a McLaren fan? Have you enjoyed the season so far? Obviously, the to and fro between Oscar and Lando, as this race with Lando getting pole and then obviously effectively leading all the way to the flag. Tell us a bit about your insight to that, because you got many great shots of Lando and of his car leading, but one of those is up now. But talk about the McLaren situation.
When I really have a lot of respect for Lando, and I've worked around him. I've never worked with him, but I've worked around him covering races that he's been driving in for, over 10 years. He was one of the drivers that I covered when I went to the Monaco Grand Prix many, many years ago. And, he was just a kid then, like literally I can't remember what year, maybe 2014 or 2015, but I was there when Max Verstappen was in Macau driving F3, and Lando was there, and Esteban Ocon, and I've seen quite a few drivers come up through the ranks, and Lando I've always felt has had this like X factor that you can't put your finger on just in terms of talent. I think he does get in his own head a little bit, but more than anything, McLaren has had like what a turnaround over the last 10 years, where they were essentially a backmarker team, an F2 engine, as Fernando called it when he was driving with them. And, to see them going from struggling at the back of the field or struggling to make it into Q3 to almost be the expected winners at these Grand Prix or expected champions, at the end of the year for both a drivers and constructors championship is incredibly it's really impressive. And I don't really have any other words to describe that turnaround that they've done from a marketing perspective, putting the team together, with all the drama with Oscar and his Alpine contract that he did or didn't have. And, to have Lando and Oscar be one of the strongest pairings of, I think they are one of the strongest pairings in the field. To have those two driving, you don't know who's going to win between the two of them, it is a lot of fun. I love Lando's energy. I think Oscar doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's pretty just level, and as a photographer, you want that energy. Like, I loved when Lewis would win races, when Schumacher would win races. When I was growing up, you'd watch him get up on the podium and, do his signature jump. And you don't really have that necessarily anymore. It's kind of lost a little bit of that. Every race felt like it was the first time with Michael and Lewis when they would win, and you don't really feel that anymore. So I would love to see a little bit more energy and a little bit more emotion from all of these drivers. But yeah, it's to see them just dominating Formula One, essentially, and to have a really good championship kind of building. Max is kind of holding on by his fingertips, but you can never count him out. You can never count Red Bull out. So it's been a lot of fun.
I love your post-race photography. Obviously, I think this is what Formula One do so well, and they allow us an insight. I think Drive to Survive have obviously pushed them in the direction, we can't pretend that the storylines don't happen in real life that happen in Drive to Survive. So you get the cool down room and all those things. But that shot you got, you're there, right there. Or maybe you weren't. I don't know what lens you had on when Lando's signing the champagne bottle, and here we are.
Really close.
I mean,
I was
that's
really close.
A lovely. I saw him shaking the pen. It wouldn't work, right? It didn't go first time.
He wrote a lovely little note to his mom and dad. I don't know if this was a new thing where, because they have the new sponsorship, and like the Rolex brand has been changed out to the champagne is one
LVMH, Tag Heuer, and
exactly. So I don't know if it's part of that sponsorship where they have a bottle of champagne that they sign at each race, but I hadn't seen it before where they actually sign it, and he signed it right there in front of us, right next to the catch fence where I'm standing, waiting for the podium to start. So he wrote a nice little note to his mom and dad on the bottle, and it's just kind of like a nice moment to be, you're right there. You're like, I don't know, 2 feet away from the guy as he's signing this bottle, and it's definitely one of those things to remember. It's very cool.
And for me, it also allows us to also take stock and appreciate the fact these are young guys.
Yeah.
They're not. I know you got Alonso and you got, Lewis, but the others are all just like full of vim and vigor and just going for it as young men. And you see their stunning girlfriends they're with, which thank God, makes Formula One even more fun to watch. But, you see them, but they race around the front sharp edge of the spear of hundreds of millions of dollars of investment and all that technology, and then they get out and they have acne. I mean, it brings back home, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're just kids. Like, honestly, I've been very fortunate to work around so many racing drivers of so many different ages, and as I'm getting older, these drivers are getting younger, which just feels strange that Lando is in his early 20s and Max feels like a seasoned veteran, but he's what,
28, was he 27?
Yeah.
I know.
And Lewis, he's in his early 40s, and Fernando's in his mid 40s, but they're still legends and they're still out there, and you can never count out Fernando. It is really cool to kind of see this younger generation kind of growing up and becoming more and more, a part of the sport that we've all grown up watching and love,
and reshaping it and redefining it in their own way. And it's the final shot I want to show that you took, because I love black and white photography and I'm a poor imitator of what you do, but it is all about being there in that moment and having that eye. And you taking this shot of Lando's dad, it's just so intimate, and you see that emotion come through, because it's a journey for everybody. This is what our viewers must remember. The journey and the sacrifice by every single person involved to get a young man, and hopefully a young woman soon, into Formula One, top level of motorsport, is so immense. So to win Monaco, I felt you'd given us a little moment, an insight into something very personal.
Well, I mean, you and I are both parents, and there's so many parents out there that, I can't even imagine what I would feel if one of my kids was winning Grand Prix, or, like at the front of the Formula One field, winning these races. And, you're kind of, as a photographer, you're always looking for those moments. At least I am, just because, again, it's not just about the race cars for me, that I want to be remembered for documenting not just the race as it happened, but the before, the beginning, and the after. And there was a picture that I took last year in Abu Dhabi of Max and his what do the Brits call it, not a stepdaughter, but his
goddaughter or whatever.
It's Penelope's daughter.
Yeah.
Right, Penelope is her name, and it's a nice picture of her reaching into the car to, like, smack her stepdad on the head and play with his helmet, and he's literally about to go out to the grid for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the last race of the year, and he's world champion, and it's just a moment between a dad and his little girl, even if it's not his biological child, it's his little girl. And it's just really special to have these moments where you can see past the world champion, past the Max that people love or really don't like. You can see a human behind that helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really incredible to be able to have front row access to see that, to share it, to document it. But you do have to be aware and kind of be looking for those moments. They don't just appear. You kind of have to be there waiting for it to, like, or be ready for it to happen when it happens.
You can sort of see it coming together. I'm sure you can, like, I know what it's like in my own little way. You see the moment happening, Lando's dad coming towards him, whatever. No, I'm so glad you do, because they're my favorite photographs from, the different eras of Formula One and world sports car racing or whatever, is the human face of it and seeing who's
100%.
there.
And I'm never going to sell prints of those moments, but I'm also very acutely aware that those are the moments that are more important than maybe Max sitting in his car, where it could be any Grand Prix. It doesn't matter which Grand Prix it is. It looks the same. The Red Bull garage is the same no matter what. So to have those moments where Max is sharing a moment or Lando is sharing a moment with his dad, it's just a dad and his son is all it is.
Yeah. I've always thought, I'm giving you an idea for a book one day. It's the frame either side is the one I'm interested in, right? I even think about it in the movies when you get, or Steve McQueen getting ready to take a press shot, or Patrick, what was it like the second before, or when he'd finished, and they're all broke, they're laughing and those are the shots I think that capture the behind the scenes that keep this legacy of the sport going, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So before I let you go, you do IMSA, you do Indy. I mean, you get to see them all. Describing to someone that doesn't understand or just is trying to get into motorsports, how would you describe those three disciplines and why you should watch each of them?
Well, sports car racing, I love just, and I've always loved it. I've loved Formula One since I was a little kid, but I've also loved sports car racing, and they're entirely different, and you don't have to be a fan of one or the other. For those of you that haven't ever been to a sports car race, like one of the IMSA WeatherTech races or World Endurance Championship, you're racing for, our sprint races are 2.5 hours. Our endurance races, go up to 24 hours. And it's incredibly special to see the evolution of a race over a 24-hour period, and to see how the cars change, the drivers, the mechanics. It's a real challenge photographically. Like, Monaco is a walk in the park compared to being awake for 40 hours covering Le Mans or Rolex 24, Spa 24, or Nürburgring. Like, those 24-hour races are really amazing. And the best part for me is to see the access that fans get, that you can just walk into the paddock and you don't need to be a VIP. You don't need to be Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie or Matt Damon to walk into the paddock or go on the grid at any of these races, because at any IMSA race, it's a free and open grid if you have a ticket. So to be there on the grid before the Rolex 24 is amazing. And then you have the contrast of Formula One, which is celebrities and glitz and glamour, and if you're on the grid, you're somebody important or have just been given an incredible opportunity. But then you have these races that are watched by basically billions of people around the world, and sports car racing doesn't have that viewership, but it is really, really amazing to have that access, because it's not quite as popular, and doesn't mean it's any lesser racing. In fact, in many ways it's better racing. But I'm very fortunate to know a lot of the drivers and know the teams and mechanics, and before a race you can go up and high five and have a funny joke between your friends, and you're just going to go out and enjoy a nice race day wherever we are in the world.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky you're one of the family, I guess, wherever you go, which is important for that level of intimacy to get those photographs. I'm glad you do, Jamey. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It really was good. I just thought you're there. I saw your Instagram, and yeah, really good to have you on the show. So you're off next. You're off to Detroit. That's glamorous.
Yeah, this is kind of my tough time of year. I've been to Florida 3 times in the last 3 weeks. I did Laguna Seca for the IMSA WeatherTech race. I was in Monaco. I go straight to Detroit this week. And then I get 1 weekend off before I go back to France for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And then our 6-hour Watkins Glen IMSA WeatherTech race in New York. And then I'm taking a little bit of time off in July before we kind of start again in August. But it's kind of a tough time of year. Just you're here, there, and everywhere, racking up the air miles and racking up the miles on my legs. You know, I'm ready to go see a chiropractor and get a massage maybe after all this is done in late June.
Well, Jamey, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, JB. It was a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you very much to Jamey for joining us. As always, a great guy to talk to. I just love the fact that they get so close and personal with the cars and drivers. But now we turn our attention to the third weekend of this triple header. Just spare thought for the teams, mechanics, and engineers that have to put all that work in between time, and the logistics guys. But we head to Spain, the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Sorry if I butchered that name. Now, the drivers love it. It's fast. It's got great fast and medium corners, and they know it so well as teams with data because it was one of the most popular teams with Formula One to go and test just a few years ago. Now, last year, Max held off Lando to win. This year, who will be heading off who? I mean, just 3 points for Oscar in his lead in the championship as he leaves Monaco. That'll weigh on his mind a bit. We saw some cracks in his armor, some chinks that could be exploited. If I was Team Lando, I would be putting my fingers in them, trying to pull them apart, analyzing where, if there is one, does Oscar Piastri have a weakness? For me, Lando, just excel, be right at the front. You are as fast as any man out there. Just believe it in your soul and it will come true to you. And his team, as I said at the beginning, are really putting it together. But he will feel very confident coming off this last weekend. Max is always the factor, isn't he? And his car is very settled in the fast corners. So I think we will see him doing this, the lone rider again on the Red Bull squad, but pushing his way to the front. To be honest, Ferrari probably had their Cinderella moment last Sunday in Monaco, Saturday and Sunday. And by the time we get to Spain, it'll be more rat and pumpkin, something tells me. So don't hold out much hope for them. And Mercedes, they have to get back on top of it again. It's critical. They are one team that will be really having their heads down from Sunday afternoon through till Friday when they hit the track in Spain, because they need to. And as I said, I'm very excited to see how Lawson and Hajar do again. They're working together so well this weekend, but definitely Lawson now has his confidence back. And as the team principal said, this is the Liam I remember from last year. So I'm excited to see how they do. Anyway, let's see this weekend. There's a lot of pressure for everybody and a pivotal moment going into we're now exactly a third of the way through the championship. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget you can catch us at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays if you want to catch it early on Sirius XM ESPN Extra Channel 81 and thereafter on the app. But this show specifically, I think, really go and check it out on our YouTube channel as well so you can see all Jamey's amazing images. I certainly will be. Thanks you so much, everybody, and also to the Wynn Las Vegas. I will see you next week.